First, let's start with this case. I am a 17-year-old girl, and I will turn 18 in a few days. My dad passed away when I was 7 years old, and a year later, my mom married my stepdad. He was never unkind to me, but he also never really paid attention to me, until my mom had my half-sister, who is now 10 years old. After my half-sister was born, my mom decided to stay at home to care for her. She did everything for my sister, buying her things, taking her places, and giving her all the attention. Meanwhile, I stopped receiving pocket money entirely. At first, it hurt deeply, especially when the three of them would go out and leave me behind with neighbors or friends. Over time, though, I stopped caring. When I turned 15, I got a part-time job, which gave me a chance to get out of the house. I barely saw my mom, stepdad, or sister after that. I started buying the things I needed, including personal hygiene products, because even those were limited at home. Most of my earnings were saved, and over the past 3 years I've managed to accumulate a significant amount. On Thursday, while I wasn't home, my sister went into my room looking for a charger. Instead, she found the money I had been saving and showed it to my mom and stepdad. When I returned home, they were furious. They demanded to know where I got so much money and accused me of earning it through illegal means. My stepdad even insinuated that I might be involved in activities like selling banned substances. I tried explaining that the money came from years of saving my earnings, but they refused to believe me. My stepdad said this was why he wanted me out of the house when I turned 18, calling me a bad influence on my sister. They refused to return the money, claiming they didn't know if it was obtained legally. I was so upset that I left and went to stay with a friend. Until that moment, I hadn't even realized my stepdad had plans to force me out when I became an adult. Despite everything, I don't blame my sister for any of this. She's still young and doesn't understand the situation. She isn't unkind to me. We just don't have much of a relationship. To her, I'm more like a roommate she occasionally sees in passing. Let's start judging. You're not in the wrong. You are almost an adult. Now is the time to learn how to stand up for yourself because sometimes parents are wrong. Tell them to give you back your money or you will call the police. Don't bluff, do it. If they aren't going to listen, you need to force them to listen. The reason they're not giving the money back is because it's free for them to use as they please. And try to get a non-custodial bank account. Some banks offer this to teens 16 to 17 years old. You'll need to do some research. I am tired of parents who steal their kids' money. As a parent of 4, I would never do such a thing, no matter my financial state. Edit. It does crack me up that a teen can get a job and pay income taxes and Social Security, but they can't open their own bank account in many places without their parents. You're not in the wrong. Your mom is responsible for buying everything you need until you're 18 as a bare minimum. I get people can struggle for money. Life is hard in this day and age. I don't get the sense that's the case here, though. And feminine hygiene products being limited, you have to buy your own, that redefines mean in act and spirit. As does not giving you pocket money until you're able to work. When I was 15, I got a part-time job that got me out of the house, and I hardly saw any of them. I have been saving most of my money for 3 years. Unless they literally didn't know you had a part job, they're a disgrace. And for not listening to you. They stole your hard-earned money. As a parent, I am appalled. Seek legal redress via the police if you can. Your mom put your stepsister and sad excuse for a husband before you. Your attitude re your stepsister says a lot for your maturity and insight. Be safe. I wish you all the luck in the world. I really do. Next up, I'm a 56-year-old single mother, and my 17-year-old daughter has her learner's permit. She recently asked me to take her driving so she could practice. I agreed, but I was very clear about one thing. She needed to be ready to leave as soon as I got home. I told her explicitly, if I walk in the house and sit down, we are not going. For context, I'm a single working mom and I clean houses for a living. It's a physically demanding job, and by the time I get home, I'm completely exhausted. Once I finally sit down, it's hard to get back up again. My daughter struggles with time management because she is on the autism spectrum. While I'm understanding of her challenges, I believe it's important to teach her ways to work around them rather than using them as an excuse. I encourage her to start getting ready earlier, set alarms, and use reminders. I even help her with prompts when needed. But one thing I will not do is enable her when she is being habitually late or inconsiderate of other people's time. She needs to learn that her actions affect others. Yesterday was especially challenging for me at work. Despite being exhausted, I was still willing to take her driving. I texted her as I was leaving work and let her know I'd be home in 45 minutes. I even sent her another text when I was about 5 minutes away, reminding her to be ready. When I got home, I discovered she had decided to spend the 45 minutes on the treadmill and had lost track of time. To make things worse, she wanted to take a shower before we left. I reminded her that she needed to be ready when I got there, but she ignored me and got in the shower anyway. By the time I walked into the house, she was still in the shower. I realized I would have to wait for her to finish, get dressed, and get ready before we could leave. At that point, I refused to wait. I had been very clear about my boundary. Once I sat down, I wasn't getting back up. She thinks I'm being unreasonable and overly harsh. If this had been a one-time thing, I might have let it slide. But it's not. This kind of behavior has been a chronic issue, and I feel it's disrespectful of others' time. Was I wrong for sticking to my word and not taking her? Let's start judging. You're not in the wrong. You set clear boundaries, and you're allowed to do so. I have ADHD, and of course I have issues with different things, but that doesn't mean everyone around me just have to take the consequences. Having a diagnosis might be an explanation for certain things, meaning people shouldn't yell at you and say nonsense like, "You just don't want it enough." But it doesn't mean people can't set boundaries or make demands if they're doing something for you. You're not in the wrong. You were crystal clear with your expectations. You are not being mean. You are being a good parent. Your actions now will help her become a responsible adult. You're not in the wrong. An ex of mine was, and potentially still is, similar with time. I really wish that it had been focused more on when she was younger. I wish it was not the case, but it is part of why she is an ex of mine. Most of the reason was distance, but yeah, that strain did not help. 2 cents that might work. Take it or leave it. It is likely she has no internal clock. That is fair. You are doing everything you can to help nudging her. Next step might be to point her towards external time teller tools. Does she like music? If so, tell her to make music lists. One with songs that adds up at 15 min, one for 30, one for 45, and so on. I worked with peculiar teens for quite some years, and that was the main trick we used to get them going in the mornings. After a while, they would get it in the mind that, okay, when song A played, it was time to eat breakfast. Song B was going, shower, song C, brushing teeth, song D, put on shoes, and then there is the finale countdown. Now we rush to put on backpack and run for the bus, guys. Next up, backstory. My wife has been struggling with several mental health conditions for quite some time. Most of the time, my son and I manage to help her or work around her challenges, and her struggles typically affect only her directly. Today is our annual Christmas party, and this week has been particularly tough for her. She hasn't been out of bed except to eat or use the bathroom since Wednesday. Yesterday, she told me she wanted to cancel the party. I told her it was too last minute, and I didn't even have a comprehensive list of the people we invited to inform them about a cancellation. In an effort to make things easier for her, I suggested that she could stay at my parents' house, since they're out of town, or get a hotel room for the night to have some peace and quiet. However, her reaction was unexpected. She called me an insensitive person who wasn't trying to help her and accused me of forcing her to miss the party. Honestly, I would much prefer her to be here. Believe me when I say that most of what I do revolves around managing her mental health and trying to keep things peaceful while minimizing the impact on her or our son. My suggestion came from a genuine desire to help her escape the stress of the event, and I even thought she might feel relieved, as though she had wanted me to offer that option, but didn't want to say it herself. It turns out that wasn't the right thing to do. She feels I should have canceled the party altogether instead of suggesting alternatives. Now I'm left wondering if I was in the wrong for how I handled this situation. Let's start judging. You're not in the wrong. I grew up with a similar mother. all we did was cater to her wants and needs and walk on eggshells. Anytime we stepped out of line, she made similar guilt-inducing remarks like your wife just did. To me, it sounds like it's time for inpatient intervention. You and your son deserve to have fun and enjoy things as well. Please don't forget that. My dad to this day can't tell me what he wants or wants to do because he spent 35 years only catering to her. A lot of people will probably downvote me and say I don't care about mental health. But that's not true. I do care. I spent years accommodating because I cared. But along the way, my dad and I forgot to care about our own needs. I finally bit the bullet and put my mom in inpatient this last time, and it was the best choice I could have made. Essentially, I stopped walking on eggshells and it did wonders. She had never had me truly push back, but now that I have, she stopped making similar statements like your wife did to you. Have the party. Your son, and you deserve to celebrate the holidays. Obviously, not a doctor here, but please consider inpatient. A week in bed means something has gone wrong. She needs mediation adjustments and someone monitoring the changes. No one is in the wrong. I'm reading how stressed and challenging your wife's illness is for you and presumably your son. You're left with all the responsibility of managing the household, raising your child, and serving as both a spouse and caregiver to your wife. Add standard holiday stressors. Your proposal could have been better, but wasn't the worst idea. But you're not an idiot from trying to keep everything functional, and your spouse is not an idiot for her current state or her reaction. Your spouse needs far more professional support, and you and your son would benefit from some yourself to address the impact of this illness. Good luck. I know it'll get the downvotes, but you're not in the wrong. I know mental health is huge, and she needs help and space and time and all of that, and all of those things should be done. But aren't forcing her to miss the party or any of that. She wanted to cancel. She's not mentally or emotionally up for it. Yeah, go to a hotel for 2 days. It's this close to the party. You can cancel and now ruin the moods of probably dozens of people. I'm sure I'm wrong, but she can stay in bed for a day somewhere else. Next up, growing up, my dad was physically present, but emotionally and financially, he was absent. Most of his time was spent gambling, leaving my mom to handle everything, from raising me to managing the household. Despite this, I've always made an effort to show him respect, even though he hasn't really acted like a father to me. Recently, things came to a head during a family disagreement. My parents were arguing about money again, and my dad tried to drag me into it. He accused my mom of being the reason for our family's financial struggles, and to top it off said, "You should be thankful for everything I've done for you." That comment struck a nerve. I finally responded, "You've never actually been there for me as a dad. Respect is earned, and you've done nothing to deserve it." The room went silent, and my dad walked away without another word. Since then, things at home have been tense. I still live with my parents, so I'm polite when I see him, but I've stopped going out of my way to engage with him. I'm tired of pretending everything is fine, when in reality, he's never been the father I needed. Some family members think I was out of line for saying what I said. They believe I should let it go because he's your dad. But I can't ignore how much his absence, emotionally and financially, has impacted my life. Am I wrong for speaking my mind and keeping my distance now? Let's start judging. You're not in the wrong. It sounds like you've been holding this in for a long time, and it finally came out because you reached your limit. Your dad pulling you into that argument and making a comment about being thankful for everything he's done, when it sounds like he's done the bare minimum, was unfair and honestly kind of insulting. You were just standing up for yourself and speaking your truth. You're not in the wrong. It sounds like you've been carrying a lot of unresolved feelings about your dad's behavior for years, and it finally came to a head. What you said wasn't cruel, it was the truth. Respect is earned, and just being someone's parent doesn't automatically entitle them to it, especially when they've neglected their responsibilities as a father. Hell no, you're not in the wrong. Parents forget their kids will grow up and remember how they acted when you were growing up. It sounds like your dad needed a reality check. It sounds like you just made your point and didn't add any inflammatory statements. Good for you.